Welcome to Church for Skeptics, giving answers to the hard questions concerning the Christian faith. Your host and teacher is Dan Arsenault.
Hi, welcome to Church for Skeptics. My name is Dan Arsenault, and welcome to the second program of the third season. It's hard to believe that we have been on this long, and we're so grateful to those who support the program. If you are interested in helping this program stay on the air, just visit our website, www.churchforskeptics.org, and you can look into helping and support. On the first program, we're really going kind of around the barn in our approach to Christianity, and what we're trying to do is make an attempt to establish some common ground for people that are not Christians, people that are skeptical of Christianity and the Bible, maybe even skeptical of the existence of God, or even absolute truth. And I want to make a strong case for Christianity from this, so I hope that you'll really stick with me for a while. Even if you're a Christian, I really hope you'll stick with me. I told the producer earlier, if the last program was the first program somebody had ever watched of Church for Skeptics, and they're watching again, I need to thank them because I felt like I was a little unclear. If this is your first program or the first time to watch Church for Skeptics, Church for Skeptics is an apologetic for Christianity. What that means is it's a reasonable defense of the Christian faith. I'm convinced, and have been for many years, and I've just made a lifetime of trying to study this, that Christianity makes the most sense. It's just the most reasonable thing to believe about our existence, about reality, about our purpose for being here. In a broader sense, I guess, I would say that Church for Skeptics is an encouragement, hopefully to you, to look for truth, which in itself, and this is really important, the search for truth in itself is not popular today. It's an unpopular position because it makes two assumptions. If we are here in an attempt to find what truth is and what reality is, we're assuming, number one, that truth exists, that there is some reality out there. And I guess we all assume that in a sense, although some people think everything's an illusion, and even that in itself, I think, self-destructs, because an illusion has to be based on something that's real. It's a false perception of reality. The second thing that we assume is that if reality exists, if there's truth to be known, there's a way to know it. Now, I think that's a combination of a couple of things. I think we can go sit on a mountaintop and come up with some truth. I really do. And others throughout history have believed that. A lot of folks aren't quite sure about that today, but I do believe that there are some things that are inherently true, and that's what we're going to talk about today. And then I think also that some truths must be revealed to us by the source of that truth. And of course, that's where the Bible comes in. We're probably not going to get too much to that today. Scientists, for example, begin their quest for knowledge about the physical universe, and that's pretty much what scientists are after, knowledge about the physical universe, but they have to begin by assuming that there is some truth about the physical universe to know, that there is reality. Otherwise, why would they even become scientists? Why would a historian, for example, study history if he didn't think he could learn something that was valid and true about history? And so scientists, through observation and experimentation and reasoning, feel that they can learn about truth. Well, I think the same thing is true about the metaphysical world. And you might narrow that down, I guess, to say spiritual world. I think there are some assumptions that can be made about metaphysics or the spiritual universe. First assumption, as I said earlier, truth exists. There is something that's true, that's real. We may not know it all. Matter of fact, I can guarantee you we don't know it all. But there is truth out there that exists. There are some statements, there are some beliefs that correspond to reality. And the second assumption that I believe about the spiritual world is that we can learn through honest observation and reason. Now, we're not going to get into the Bible specifically today. We're going to use another source, actually, Aristotle and the principles of logic. But the Bible agrees with that there are some things that we can inherently know. And like I said, everybody doesn't believe that. Friedrich Nietzsche, for example, a German philosopher who had a great influence, even today his influence is extensive. Nietzsche believed that existence itself had no meaning or purpose. There was no intrinsic truth, there was no intrinsic value, no intrinsic meaning. to the universe. Now, this is really important that you get this, okay? That statement in itself, I believe, is self-defeating. For him to say there is nothing meaningful about our existence cannot be true, because that statement in itself has meaning. So if it's true, then he's self-destructed because he's made a meaningful statement. If it's false, he's self-destructed because what he said is false. And I hope that makes sense to you, that there has to be, it's just an intrinsic truth, there has to be reality and meaning and purpose. So as I said, we're using as a starting point what Aristotle called the first principles of logic. Now, that may sound hard, and we talked about that on the last program. I want to summarize that and then move on and show you what that looks like, how that plays out in life. Ideas have a lot of consequences. It simply means there are some truths that are self-evident, that are inescapable. And the first one that we talked about on the last program is called the law of non-contradiction. And it simply means this, and we use this every day in conversation. We can't really communicate without this. It means something is either true or false, but not both. And that's pretty obvious. It's self-evident. Now, some people would even disagree with that, but even in disagreeing with that, if they say the law of non-contradiction is not true, then they have just proved it, because they're saying it's not true, it's false. The opposite view of what I guess we would call traditional logic, which is the law of non-contradiction, both something can't be true and false at the same time. The opposite view is pluralism. Now, pluralism is a very popular philosophy today. It's kind of the philosophy, pluralism, which leads to what's called relativism. Says basically the opposite. Something can be true and false at the same time. But even that view, I'm so convinced of this after thinking this through and an extensive amount of reading, pluralism is self-defeating because it denies that something is true. Pluralism is saying that it's a true statement that things can be true and false at the same time. So it says the law of non-contradiction, that things can't be true and false at the same time, is not true. So it self-destructs. Something is either true or false. I'm reminded, one of my favorite movies is Fiddler on the Roof. And I'm reminded of a little scene in there where Rep Tevye hears an opinion of someone and he says, "You're right." Then he hears an exactly opposite opinion from somebody else, and in an effort to be congenial, he says, "You're right." And a third party says, wait a minute, they can't both be right. And Rep Tevye says to the third party, "Yeah, you're also right." Well, they're making fun of this idea that something can't be right and wrong, true and false at the same time. So what I believe is, and the point that I'm trying to lay as a foundation here, is that some things, some statements, some beliefs are true because they match reality. Now, and they may be false because they don't match reality, but it's out there to be discovered. It's out there to be learned. Let me illustrate the logic of what I'm saying with a Hindu parable. Now, pantheism, which is the worldview of the Hindu religion, basically says that things can be true and false at the same time. It just all depends on your perspective. And so they have a parable where 6 blind men are touching an elephant. Now try to follow this. It's not hard to follow. I'm not assuming you can't, but you'll see the point I'm driving at. 6 blind men touch an elephant. One of them touches the tusk and says, "This is a spear." One of them touches the trunk of the elephant and says, "This is a snake." One of them touches the ear of the elephant and says, "This is a leaf." One of them touches the side of the elephant and says, "This is a wall." One of them then touches the leg of the elephant and says, "No, this is a tree." And then finally, the 6th guy touches the tail and says, "This is a rope." Now, the point that the parable is trying to make is that all of them are right from their perspective, and all of those perspectives have to be accepted and respected. And so all of them